Well, howdy, ma'am. I've got a package here for you to sign for. Wow, this sure is a big home you have. And you live here all alone? It must get pretty lonesome. What's that you say? You need a big strong man to fix your pipes? Well, I'm none of those things, but I can sure take a look. Why are you taking your clothes off? And welcome back to another development log video. In the last part I worked on grappling hooks, and in this part I work on grappling hooks, and then also why I don't like grappling hooks anymore, and also maybe the combat updates and attack animations and combat systems in-game. But depending on how long I talk about grappling hooks for, I may just talk about that part in next week's development log video. So that one's up in the air, who's to say? So in the last week of development, I worked on grappling hooks, as I said, and you clearly know because you watch all of my videos. However, I felt like they didn't have enough pull and release to them. Essentially, if you are using a grappling hook in popular videos games such as Titanfall, there is an initial when you attach your grappling hook, then you don't really have much force applied to your character yet, and then as you are moving, you are starting to be pulled more by your grappling hook towards it, and then you have reached your maximum pull force of the grappling hook pulling you towards it, and you enter the release phase where you have less control and you are moving at the initial pull of the grappling hook as you are being moved towards this initial velocity, but you're having a little bit more control, and then you have a release and you'll launch from your grappling hooks. That's how cool grappling hooks work, but mine didn't work like that. The way mine worked previously on Slug Glove, the way mine worked is that it added a static amount of force to your character based on a tension value that was calculated using a mathematical formula based on the physics ropes tension. Do you remember? I remember. I was there. I made it. And this system of calculating your velocity based on rope tension was pretty good for adding realistic pull movements to your character, for example when they're getting caught between things, but it wasn't good for fun swinging or fun grappling hook effects. So I changed the way this worked, and I changed the way you would require velocity, and I made it so that the use of grappling hooks has a bit more pull and release to the system, as in what I just described. That's what I made. What I just talked about, I made that. Why did I do this, you may ask? Well, that's an excellent question that leads me into organically info dump about game design for 10 minutes. Let's go. I felt like the design I currently had was very good for using ropes for mobility, as in roping around corners, getting stuck between two ropes, hanging on ropes, being pulled around by ropes. It was very physicsy looking with the way ropes behaved, but it wasn't fun. Well, it was fun, but it was fun in the way that a game would be designed around that system. But if I added this system as a addition to regular gameplay, it would be incredibly confusing, because it's an entire system you have to learn about through gameplay, sort of the way a game would teach you how to walk and run. And if my game has wall running, I would have to organically teach the player with a tutorial how to use wall running, because it is a complicated system of movement that the player may not be used to, but they have to learn how to use to play the game. The rope swinging as it was really complicated to get a hang of, and as a result, if I added it into the game at that point, the way it currently was last week, I felt like a lot of players would just find it, say, "Oh boy, grappling hook," start using it, say, "Oh boy, this control's kinda weird," and not really understand how to control the grappling hook very well without a dedicated half-hour-long tutorial. And at that point, most people get bored and not use the grappling hook, because there's like a motorbike 20 meters to the right of them, and they could just use the motorbike. The video game #1 gamer sin is adding a grappling hook and then having the grappling hook not be fun. If you do that, you go to gamer hell, which is just regular heaven, but they don't have game cubes. So to summarize, long-winded explanation about grappling hook controls, I felt like it was too difficult to control in the previous setup, and I wanted it to look more like a grappling hook that anyone could use and organically figure out how it uses. Essentially, you point the grappling hook at a thing, you press the grappling hook button, it pulls you towards the thing, and then releases you from the movement of the thing, and you are flung into the air, around about wherever you aimed. However you would imagine a grappling hook to be used, essentially, is what I wanted to go for. And then in this system, I can add complexities onto the system. For example, aiming yourself before you're flung so you can carry forward your momentum in some way and fling about things with your grappling hook, meaning the grappling hook is initially very easy to use for players, but can be added to have complexities in its movement, and it doesn't have to depend on a initially very complicated and difficult to use movement system. It can initially be very easy to use for any player's skill level, even if you're not an epic gamer, and then can be learned to have more complexities to its movement, which is what I wanted to do. So to change the system, the first thing I did is have to calculate the pull and release of a grappling hook. The first thing I did was make a timer for the rope's calculations. This is essentially how long we have been using this rope, and at the end it will launch us. So it's a timer that's set, and then it ticks up, and then it reaches its rope time, and then it finishes its function. I like using timers in scripting because it's fun to keep track of numbers. Spoilers for next week's devlog, or also this devlog, depending on how I organize these. When I add combat, it's based entirely on timer systems. But for now, this is just the base of our graph of momentum, which if I was better, I would draw on the screen. It's the time, how long we've been using our rope for. Using this time signature, we then calculate how much force should be applied to this specific rope based on our time signature. So we then have a next value we take in. This is the rope's launch time. This is how long it takes between our rope's time, this being the amount of time the rope takes to complete its function. This is how long into that we'll reach our maximum force added to our character. This is the initial pull we are pulled towards our rope, and is the most velocity that is going to be added to our character from the grappling hook function. If our current timer for our rope is underneath this percentage value, we will lerp to our rope's pull control, to our pull speed. We will lerp to our rope's pull speed. We'll set a speed value for how speedy this rope is, based from 0 to our rope's pull speed, multiplied by our tension amount. So we're still using the tension to make it so our character is pulled towards ropes more or lesser, depending on the tension of our rope, as calculated last week. The lerp value for this calculation of speed is based on our rope's pull time and our rope's overall time, so it's essentially how close our rope's pull time is to how close our rope's current time is to our rope's pull time. Do you want to know the mathematical calculation? It's 1 divided by our rope's pull speed time, whatever I made that function, the time at which we are pulled towards our rope, multiplied by our current time, and this makes our lerp value for this speed function. I'm not sure if I read that correctly. Let's hope I did. This calculates our speed value for our initial pull time, so the closer we get to our pull time, the more force is going to be added to our character. After this point, we have our release time. This is lerping from our pull time to our release speed, however much speed we're going to be added onto. This is sort of after we have used a grappling hook and we're just having our force applied to us, and we're having a little bit of dampening added afterwards as we're slowing down and moving towards our initial pull force. This is a further lerp value from our pull speed multiplied by our tension to our release speed multiplied by our tension, and a lerp value for this value. Let's look at the mathematical calculation for what this one is. It's 1 divided by 1 minus the rope's pulse time multiplied by the current time minus the rope's pull speed time multiplied by the rope's pull time. I'm almost assuredly sure that that is probably a convoluted and terrible way to calculate that mathematical function. I probably could have just done the current time minus the pull time at the pull time divided by overall time. I probably could have just done the rope's current time minus the rope's pull time divided by the rope's max time minus the pull time to do something. This makes our speed value. Then all we do is calculate our gravity amount of this rope. This is more complicated. Our gravity amount of our rope is the y amount of our rope. This is how much our rope's going to be pulling us up or down. The reason this has to be calculated separately or modified is because I want more vertical amounts to be added to our character's grappling hook system. So if our gravity amount is more than 0, this is meaning that we're being pulled upwards. We'll multiply our gravity amount by our gravity amount booster. This is a value that's just added onto our gravity amount. This can also be made to a value less than 1 if I want our character's grappling hook to be less vertically pulling, as in it will not pull us vertically higher. Then, if our current time is below our rope's pull speed, we'll have our gravity amount lerp between our 0 and this value that we have wanted, meaning that as we are pulling towards our rope's pull speed, our gravity amount is made to be more intense as we are being pulled towards it, and then in the aftermath of this, as we are releasing, we'll have our gravity amount lerp to 0, but we lerp this by our current, our second lerp value multiplied by itself, meaning it will be less intense. So we are losing gravity less than we normally would. For example, if our lerp value is 0.5, we will multiply that by 0.5, it would be 0.25, our lerp value would then return higher because it's returning our gravity amounts as it should be, in opposed to the regular amounts of what 0.5 would be on the lerp. Then all we do is set the value of this rope direction multiplied by its speed. Our direction is calculated as it normally would be, and then this function will return what our rope's velocity is for this one rope. We then added this onto our other rope's velocity, and then we have our two velocity amounts of our both ropes. To summarize this very complicated, long-winded section, essentially all we are doing is we are calculating our rope's tension as we normally would, and then we're applying modifiers of speed, and we're lerping to different values of our rope tension speed of what it could be based on a artificially generated graph of tension speeds. So we have our graph, we track it, goes from 0, it peaks upwards to a large amount around a set amount of how long our pull speed is, and then it slowly lerps back down to a smaller value as we move away from this time signature point. And then our rope releases at 0, and we either maintain this value or we slow down because we are running on the ground. I then played through the game without the logic for the grappling hook ropes releasing, because it was funny. It was funny to watch the player attach a grappling hook to something, be pulled into it, and just smack into a wall, face first. So it's pretty fun. Pretty fun visual. But this outlined a issue with the grappling hook system, being that it pulls you into the wall, like right into the wall, as in directly as you aimed into the wall. Now you may be saying that that seems like exactly what grappling hooks should do, and yes, but in terms of using grappling hooks to maneuver around, you don't want to be pulled directly into the actual wall, especially if you're using your grappling hook at an angle, as in you're not going straight looking at the grappling hook surface. You're going at an angle based on your input direction, and you could be facing away from the wall, for example. You want to be pulled in the direction of the wall, but not in the actual wall's positioning. In fact, to logically think of this, the actual place you would want to be pulled towards with the grappling hook based on your movements would be based on your speed, further forward from the wall, and then based on your distance from the grappling hook, further out from the wall. So we are now calculating a new point. That's what I did in this section. I made a new calculation point for the grappling hook's tension surfacing. We calculate the new point. Instead of being from the player's direction to the wall hit point, the grapple, we're adding an offset based on our player's movement speed, as in how quickly they are going, and also based on the distance from this grapple point. If we are further away, we'll then have a further distance out from the grappling hook wall position, away from the wall. This means in movements, we're not being pulled directly into the wall's surface, we're being pulled relative to the wall, meaning we can easily swing around objects instead of just being pulled into a block and slamming face first into a wall. As really funny as that is, it just seemed like a pretty bad idea control-wise. I think, personally, if you use a grappling hook, it shouldn't instantly kill you by throwing you at a wall. But hey, what do I know, right? And finally, what this whole grappling hook coding has led up to. I removed the grappling hook system. Why did I do that, you may ask? Well, you'll be delighted to know I don't have a firm reason. You know, given the fact that this is the fourth devlog series of videos I've made on adding a grappling hook and then removing the grappling hook, I'm surprised you didn't see this one coming. So why did I remove the grappling hook, you may ask? That's an excellent question. It initialized from the beginning, where I was testing the grappling hook last week, and I had the same impression that I voiced earlier in the video, where the grappling hook was too complicated to move around, and had to have dedicated movement tutorials for this. I know with the way I changed the grappling hook's movement, this isn't particularly an issue anymore, but it got me thinking. Basically that the grappling hook in itself is too dedicated of a movement system to not have a large proportion of the game's mobility based around it, and the way it works, it pretty much invalidates any other movement option you have available. For example, why run up this wall with a wall run when you could just grappling hook up to it? Why build speed by sliding and running down hills and building momentum when you can grappling hook into the distance and build a bunch of speed from your grappling hook? Why fight these enemies when you can grappling hook over them? The grappling hook ruined my entire game design because it was too good. I came to the realization why more games don't have grappling hooks. It made every other movement option worse because they were compared to a grappling hook. I'm trying to find a way to explain this in a way that isn't just me convolutedly talking about grappling hooks and movement options, so I hope that my point has come across. That essentially, that as long as the grappling hook is in the game, I feel like players are only going to use the grappling hook and nothing else, or they will find the grappling hook too clunky and difficult to use, and they will never use the grappling hook. It seemed like if I wanted to use the grappling hook, I should make a dedicated game of where the player is designed around having a grappling hook, in opposed to the grappling hook being a side optional equipment item the player can use. It's sort of like if a game had 20 weapons you could use. For example, this is like a metaphorical example. If a game had 20 weapons that you could use, and 19 of them were unique and different, but one of them was incalculably better than all of the other weapons, then you'd pick that one. And that's kind of how I felt with the grappling hook. It was just a whole lot better than every other movement option, and it invalidated a whole other set of designs that I had, like why vault over things when you can use a grappling hook? Why use a skateboard when you can use a grappling hook? Why breathe when you can use a grappling hook? And if you're thinking, well, why not update every other movement option to be on par with the grappling hook system? And I thought of that. I thought about doing that. But the issue of that is I really like the other movement options the way they are. I like that the wall run isn't very quick, and it doesn't have a whole lot of instant speed to it. It's not like a very over-the-top parkour style of wall run. It's not like a Titanfall where you can wall run for a while. There's difficulty in using the wall run in the system, and I really like that about the wall run we currently have set up in this game. And by we I mean me. There's only one me making the game. I don't know why I used the multiple. The same with the skateboard. I like that it's kind of slow and it slows down. It's not very quick unless you're using your slopes, and then it's very quick, but it can be hard to control sometimes. I like that about the skateboard. I like that the slide is really slow on grounded surfaces, but you can slide down hills really quickly. I like the vaulting, how it can be kind of slow if you're doing a large vault, or the ledge grabbing, how that's kind of slow as well, but it has more weights behind it. I really like the way every other system is, and the grappling hook was too exaggerated and overpowered of a movement option to be free of my ire to just delete it completely. I mean, the other option would be that I could have a grappling hook but make it not as overpowered, which I have thought about, which I might do in the future, of just adding a grappling hook system that isn't overpowered and invalidates all of the movement options. I wonder if there's a video game example of a not overpowered grappling hook. Monster Hunter Rise has a really good grappling hook system that isn't overpowered. It's not physics based, and it's not like a momentum thing that you can use, but it is a grappling hook movement option that isn't overpowered and blends well with the other game's movement options. So I might be designing a new grappling hook that has a similar sort of setup where it's not about swinging around on the grappling hook and not about exploiting movement options, but it is its own movement option, and it will work in pair with the rest of the movement option in the game, and it will be maybe more clunky or have drawbacks like I usually design with the movement options in this game. Oh, and also I'm adding combat, and the grappling hook worked really badly with the combat. That is the second reason why I'm removing the grappling hook. The next thing I did this week was adding combat, but it's currently not at a point where it's easy to talk about. And it's currently not at a point where a lot of the combat systems are fleshed out enough to talk about in depth without leaving out information which would make more sense to explain, because the information that I'm going to be leaving out is what I'm making next week for the combat. So next week's devlog is about combat. Do you like fighting things? You can do that now. Yay. So next week of development will be about combat, and also will probably be 1 hour long, because it's going to be a devlog encompassing everything I do next week and also everything I've done this week in terms of, not to spoil it too much, but a lot of it is working on a system to adaptively splice combat animations in order to make them more varied, so I can use the same set of combat animations, but I can cut them apart and reorganize them through scripting, and it's going to be a very good video, I think. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm enjoying it so far. If you have any suggestions for any funny weapons you would like the player to swing at monsters of any assortment, you can leave it in the comments below. Make sure to like,